In the knife combat that we do, one of the parts is called knife boxing, as you may be familiar with if you've been watching my channel. Knife boxing is actually a misnomer because what we're really doing here is knife MMA. We don't limit ourselves just to boxing. So the reason why we call it knife boxing is because it seems to have a better ring to it. It just sounds better. And also when you first start off learning it, we start you off with boxing anyway, so the name seems suitable. Today's topic is going to be ground fighting or grappling with a knife involved. I want to bring this to your attention because not too long ago I got a comment. It was actually a very rude comment, so I ended up blocking the person that posted it, but it was a valid question. It was a basic valid question that I'm sure he wasn't the only one that had this question. It's just that he asked it and he didn't ask it, he just made this statement in a very rude way. So anyway, this video is for those people that are nice and have the same question. And the question was basically, why would you put a person into a submission like a rear naked choke or an arm bar? Why would you do that when you have the knife? To answer the question, it's a very simple answer. It's basically because it's not so easy. That's why. If I could just slit his throat or if I could stab him in a vital organ, that's great. I would have. I would have already, but it wasn't that easy. I failed. If you're on the ground grappling with somebody, it's because it was a forced position. You know, you screwed up somehow and you ended up there. Okay, that's I think the biggest thing that a lot of non-grapplers fail to realize is that when I go to the ground and I'm fighting on the ground, it was a forced position. That's a very, very big big step that so many people fail to realize. It was never a choice, you know. It's either you end up on the ground and you know how to fight from there or you don't. It's very simple. Either you know or you don't. I didn't want to be there, but I ended up there, you know. I didn't want to be in the fight anyway, but it just happened. So that's the biggest thing to realize. And when it does happen and you are on the ground, if you are in the army and you are a soldier, you know, your army combatives is going to be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu based anyway. So if you are on the ground, you want to make this fight as close as possible to your training. You want it to be like a pure grappling match. If you focus too much on the knife, right, and you try to stab him too much at the wrong time, he might end up bucking you over, you might lose your balance, and before you know it, he's going to have his hands on your knife or on your wrist, and he's going to be trying to pry the knife out of your hand, and at this point, you're in a tug-of-war. So you're on the ground and it's a tug-of-war of the knife. You want the knife, he wants the knife, and to me that's a situation that I don't train. You know, that's a situation that I haven't spent a whole lot of time with. Now if I'm trying to battle his posture, if I'm trying to get into a better position, now this is a game that I am very familiar with. So do you want to go into a territory that you're not familiar with, or do you want to go into a territory that you are familiar with, you know? So that's why you should be fighting him using your style. I think that's one of the biggest problems that happens on the street or even in the cage when people go into a fight and they forget their style, they don't stick to their game plan, and they end up, you know, doing wild things. They don't do the stuff that they were trained to do, you know. So that's what you want to do, in my opinion. So I would submit the guy, you know, not submit the guy, but put the guy in a submission, break his arm, you know, choke him unconscious, and then slit his throat. You know, I would have done that if I could, but I wasn't able to. So what this does is these submissions make it easier for me to finish the guy, because in real life, in a real situation, in a real self-defense situation, a submission does not finish the fight. You're going to have to keep going after that.